Good morning. You're listening to Central Wisconsin's 24-hour information station, AM 1320 WFHR. It's time now for the Morning Magazine, brought to you by Comfort Air Heating, Cooling, Plumbing. Now, with the Morning Magazine, here's Carl Hilke.
Thank you, Jerry, and good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's show on AM 1320, as well as on the web at WFHR.com. We also welcome our buddy Jesse from River Cities Media, who's digitally recording this for later air on your favorite cable channel. Check your local listings, as they say. It's time for our monthly update from Wood County Board Chairman Lance Pliml. Good morning, Lance.
Thanks. Hey, I'm not your buddy, too?
Yes, you are my buddy. You're my buddy. You're always my buddy.
All right.
Okay, so it's that time of the year. We're into fall now, and that's also budget time for the Wood County Board. That means you folks get rather busy prioritizing all of the different activities of the county.
Budget time at the county level never ends. It seems like we just finished one and we start the next one. And we actually started this process back in June. Been moving forward. We start with some preliminary department budgets. We look at capital improvement plans. We move into some budget meetings with the departments, their initial requests. Eventually we get through some hearings that occur in early September. We've gone through those, and now we're in the process of finalizing that. And I think I can tell the taxpayers of Wood County that again, we are in pretty good shape. We have been an extremely fiscally responsible county over many, many years. That has not changed, and I think you're going to see a pretty good budget. We are not scrambling to come up with, that last $1 million or $2 million this year. We should be in pretty good shape, and yet we will craft a budget where we don't keep your money. If there's excess dollars, they will go back into your pocket.
Okay, so what are we looking at for a tax rate? Or
we haven't finalized that yet. I'm guessing we have not increased our tax rate in 16 years, and not only have we not increased the rate, we've actually decrease the total levy by a large percentage. I'm guessing this year we will not see a decrease. You might see an increase of a couple of cents, and I don't mean percent, but just a couple of cents. That's yet to be seen. We do have a little bit of dollars yet available as we're looking at the final numbers. Will we put that into program improvement somewhere? Will we reduce the rate further? We're just not sure yet. We try to create a balance, and we try to have the mindset, if it was your money and you were sitting at home, what would you do with it? How is it best spent? And those decisions haven't been made yet. Those will be made in October. Then as we get to November, we'll have the budget hearing in the courthouse. That'll be prior to the November county board meeting, at which time the tax rate will be established. But all in all, I think you can be pretty proud as a resident of Wood County that we have maintained or improved services, and we have really held that tax rate for close to 2 decades now.
One of the things you're doing now, because of the low interest rates and the like, is doing some financing for some needed road projects.
We are rolling out a road bonding issue this year. We just got some final numbers. We're gonna bond this project. It's a little bit under, but about a $5 million project, and a little under. It's about 1.73%, I believe, is where we got the money at. We had a situation where, as roads deteriorate and maintenance is deferred, it's oftentimes better to fix that. It's kind of that pay me now or pay me later. And as we did some real studies on this, we found that if we do some of those improvements now, we can extend the life of those roads much longer than if we neglected that maintenance. So the thought was, let's look at those projects and get them done right now to preserve those roads. That being said, we constantly look at additional dollars, state and federal dollars to do those projects. But these were some that needed to be done pretty immediately if we were going to save those roads. And one of the questions I was asked the other day, does this pertain to frac sand, for instance?
Right.
And it doesn't. This is other maintenance that just has been deferred as funding has been cut over the years. We're responsible to maintain those roads, and a lot of those revenues were garnered through gas tax, the indexing as such, and that had been removed years ago. Cars are getting better mileage. In my opinion, that's good. In some cases, people are driving less. That's okay too, but at the end of the day, we still have to maintain those roads. And as revenues decrease, and those of you who have listened know that I'm not against tax cuts normally, but at some point, you try to make the best decision for that infrastructure. And the decision was to bond for that this year. The total capacity of the county to bond is about $250 million. We are a AA plus rated county, which is the highest rating pretty much in the nation for a county of our size. Our total debt really doesn't exceed $5 million, including this issue. So we just thought it was the right time to take care of these needs.
Yeah, and is the work going to be done countywide, or is there certain areas of the county where you have particular problems?
I knew you'd ask that question, and it is countywide. And the funny part about knowing you were going to ask that question, about a week ago I deleted that plan from the emails on my phone, and I had exactly the roads and where it was going to be spent, and the number of miles. And I just, on the way over here, I actually called the highway department. I said, if you could quickly email me that sheet again, that would be great. But it is pretty much countywide. Like I said, those typically don't include those roads that are being impacted by frac sand, because those are under separate agreements.
Right.
But it is pretty much the entire, scope of the entire county. The whole breadth and width of such. And it's not necessarily entire roads. It's a mile section of County E here and a mile section somewhere else. But it's to bring those up to PACER ratings, are how they rate roads, and it's bring those up to PACER ratings where those roads are A, safe, and B, we look at I'll give you another example. If you go out there and you wreck a rim on a car, or you ruin part of the suspension, or you have other damage, it will far exceed the couple of cents in tax rate that you may have paid, and all that plays into safety too. As you navigate those highways. So we're going to take care of those. I
was going to ask you about that. I would think probably some people in some of these areas, they might call you and go, hey, Lance, we really need to do something about this road because it's wrecking my vehicle.
Well, and that does happen. We try to get out there and address those immediate needs. You and I talk about this all the time. The easiest decisions we make as a board are those where somebody calls and says, there's a big hole out on County A, can you go fill it? Well, that's pretty simple. We send a truck out there and we fill it. It comes to those decisions we make. Do you designate funds for veterans programs and those returning who've served our countries, or do you take those funds and allocate those to children who are born with special needs? Mm-hmm. Those are where the tough decisions come in. These road ones are somewhat simpler issues, and we do look at those though. We go out, we rate those roads, we look at the sub-base. Part of the problem is 40, 50 years ago when those roads were built, they pretty much bulldozed the trees in the way, in many cases buried them, and as that deteriorates over time and that wood rots,
mm-hmm.
The road base itself tends to sink. Adequate gravel wasn't put down in many cases, and sand and just total base and build up for those roads, and so they deteriorate. So we have a need today with the heavier trucks and vehicular traffic to take care of those, and we will do this. Like I said, it's going to be on a as-needed basis.
Okay. If you're just joining us on the Morning Magazine, welcome. We're visiting with Wood County Board Chairman Lance Pliml, getting his monthly update. We've been talking for a number of months now about the long-term facilities plan, as it were, for Wood County. Where are we with that? What are some of the things that you've learned so far in this process?
We know that in the long run, looking forward about, that 5, 10, 20 horizon, that we will need more space. And that isn't because we have more employees, that's just because the equipment in today's world takes up more room than it did before. And the ability to run fiber and other communications avenues into some of those buildings, as well as old heating plants, those types of things, that just aren't economically feasible to run today. That being said, our first goal was to move as many people out of City Hall in Marshfield as we could to our facility up at what was formerly known as Norwood, is now the Wood County Health Center and Annex, or Annex and Health Center. I'll get that straight yet. But we're rebranding that facility, but it was to take as much space as we had available in that facility and move employees out of the Marshfield City Hall where we were renting space. And we've accomplished a great part of that. We have not yet had the ability to move the Human Services Department out of there, because right now we thought the cost to build was greater than the cost to rent that space, as long as Marshfield allows us to do that. But we're maximizing the use at Norwood. We have some security issues that we want to address yet at the courthouse down here going forward, and that will happen at some point probably in the pretty near future. Doesn't exactly relate to the space needs study itself, but some of you might have had the opportunity in the last day or so to notice that we have finished up out at Edgewater and the improvements that were made down there. They had an open house yesterday. I think it ran from 10 to noon and again from 4 to 6 for area residents to go down and see what we have accomplished down there, because we have made a long-term commitment to keep those families intact by allowing them to have those people with those needs housed within our county. And there are certain times where some facilities won't take some of those, more challenging patients. And we've made the commitment that to keep those families intact, to keep them in Wood County, we would provide a top-notch facility to handle those needs. And that update has been, and facility has now been finished. So that's done. So right now we know we have long-term needs. We know at some point we're going to probably have to add some space. But as I talk about that, we're looking to, again, maximize use, minimize cost. And we're kind of waiting a little bit to see what the city is doing on both ends. Marshfield's going to have some needs going forward. There might be the ability to have some space that's cooperatively used. Wisconsin Rapids is looking at some redevelopment downtown, and we're looking at how that might fit into their future needs. But at the end of the day, if we can have basically everybody at one site, that cuts cost from an employment standpoint, and it also saves time for the taxpayer. I mean, if you can walk into one building and meet all your needs, that's much greater than if we send you all over the county to different offices. So going forward over the next 20 years, I think you will see a consolidation of where those services are offered.
What does that mean for the courthouse here in Wisconsin Rapids?
The courthouse will be the center of all activity. That was one of the things that the plan laid out, that we're not looking at building a new courthouse. Okay. We really do have a jewel down there. It has now been nominated for the national and state historic preservation sites. It'll be on their registry. It is a beautiful building, and it will continue to be used. But you may see an addition onto that, or an additional building built in that downtown area at some point. But again, that will play into how that works with rental costs at other facilities. For instance, right now our health department is located at Riverview Hospital. We have an extremely attractive lease there that's much less expensive than building. And every time we can maximize those tax dollars, we're going to do that.
Okay. And with regards to the courthouse, one of the immediate needs is your heating system, because you had problems with it last winter, and winters in Wisconsin are unpredictable, and they can put a wear and tear in a heating system real quick. What efforts are being made to upgrade that? Well,
we have had constant upgrades of that, and usually it's facilitated by immediate need. Something
it's not working.
But when you have a building that was built in the mid-50s, and you have original heating plants in that, and in some cases original cooling, right. And like I talked about, those buildings were never built with the idea of running all the communication, fiber optic, and all the other capabilities that we need today, sprinkler systems, all of the above. And energy costs were a big concern back then. I mean, way back then, energy was virtually free compared to what it is today. So we look at all of those needs, and the immediate needs through the Space Needs Committee were that needed to be addressed were HVAC, heating, cooling, air handling in those buildings, getting some of the high-tech equipment out of the lower levels, because we have had pipes burst from an infrastructure standpoint. Again, 60 years old.
Sure.
And a lot of that old cast iron stuff is just deteriorating. We've had a number of sinkholes in areas around the courthouse. We've had some pipes burst in, and our IT department and our communications departments are located on the lowest levels. Those will need to be relocated somewhere higher than ground level at some point. HVAC needs to be addressed, as well as security. So those projects in total would probably run in the $5 to $7 million range, and those will be at the top of that list as we go forward. And we just talked about prioritizing. We thought the roads and safety were probably number one right now, because it also plays into economic development. Two, it's those needs from the Space Needs Committee that were addressed, and we're going to have to look at that project going forward. And we look at all that. At the end of the day, there's only so many dollars available. There is not a money tree out there. Unlike the federal government, we do not kind of throw out projects out there and then set a tax rate to meet that, or look to tax revenues to meet that. We kind of look at what the taxpayer can afford and then prioritize those projects and try to make that fit into that. On another note, we also know that going forward, we're going to have a need up at UW Marshfield for some expansion up there due to some programs that are being enhanced through the medical college. We're going to need a new science building up there. We need to train additional medical personnel, and all you have to do is look at the changing demographic to know that. Our society, especially in central Wisconsin, is aging rapidly, and we have an increased need for medical care. If we have the ability to train those people and keep them here, that'll benefit us in the long run.
Yeah, that's a very good point. One of the ways Wood County makes money, of course, is with its recreational facilities, where the summer has passed, but what kind of a summer season was it for the Wood County Parks Department? It appeared that the campgrounds and the like were very busy.
You know, they have done an excellent job, and revenues have been outstanding. I had somebody the other day, I was at a meeting in the northern part of the state with part of the Department of Tourism, and one of the comments they made was, this summer was a real nice fall. You know, so it wasn't real warm. We had an extremely late start, but once we got rolling, we did a pretty good job. And that will morph into this fall season. We had a number of people out at the campgrounds this weekend. There was an event out at Lake Wazeecha.
Right.
A water ski event out there that had a number of campers again in the campgrounds. We're looking at good weather this weekend and all through the week as I'm looking at temperatures in the upper 70s.
Right.
That should help. The Warren's Cranberry Fest helps us as it fills our hotels and our campgrounds over this way. Those are all beneficial. And then tonight there's even a meeting, you know, where we're going to be talking about some improvements to Snowmobile Trails. Because if we have a winter like last winter, we don't want to miss those revenues. Any person we can keep from driving through Wood County and going further north, benefits us greatly with the tourism dollars.
Since you brought that up, last year there was that little spur went by, allowed snowmobilers basically to drive right to the Sleep Inn, I believe, and I guess that worked out real well. What kind of other improvements are we looking at in the Wood County Snowmobile Trails system?
Well, we have some bridge projects that are out there. We also are always looking at those route improvements, as we go through towns, and villages. We have to make that something that's easy to do, or those people will go to other areas. And frankly, snowmobilers, people using the ATV trails, spend a lot of money in our communities. All you have to look at is the development in some places. I'll use the example Lafayette County down in Darlington. When they built that Cheesehead Trail down there, they have specifically built hotels, cabins, campgrounds to facilitate the use down there. The restaurants, the gas stations, and all the other facilities down there are full on weekends. And we don't want to miss those tourism dollars. So when we have snow here, like we did last winter, we hate to see those trailers going by us on I-39 as they go up to the UP or Eagle River or those traditional snowmobile meccas up north. We have a pretty good trail system here, but if we can do things, in essence, to improve those routes, to straighten them out, to take them out of downtown neighborhoods and get well-designated routes, to keep those groomed, all of those things play into big dollars. Tourism's a $17+ billion industry in the state of Wisconsin. Had the opportunity to be with Secretary Klett last week, introduced her at a large event down in Madison. She can speak for hours on end.
We just had her on the morning magazine.
Yeah, last week when she's up in Rome, probably.
She's a very forceful speaker about the importance of tourism to our economy.
Yeah, and we don't want to miss those dollars. So anything we can do to improve those opportunities, we take advantage of. Yeah,
and one of the things we have going for us is, like some people have, a visitor told me, you guys are kind of like an undiscovered little gem. You're in the center of the state, doing your thing quietly, and it's really nice, and it's very attractive, and it's affordable.
It is, and especially when you look at the price of gas we touched on earlier. If you can drive, 2 hours from Madison or 2.5 hours from Milwaukee, 4 hours from Chicago, instead of heading all the way up north and adding another 3 or 4 hours to that trip, that makes us extremely attractive. So we are doing our best to put our best foot forward. And, and that's where the community out there, you out there listening, can really help us. When we do these surveys, the number one turnoff to people when they come to an area is rude treatment by the people in that area.
You mention that all the time.
Or that air of arrogance. And one of the things we hear over and over here is how friendly this area is. So, when you see that person in this area who's visiting and spending their money here and helping our economy, don't be afraid to introduce yourself, to help them out, to give directions. We hear that constantly, that we are an extremely friendly area to visit. And that's where every single person out there is an ambassador to the Wisconsin Rapids area, to Wood County as a whole. So, I encourage you, every single one of us, whether you're out there right now listening in an establishment, whether you're at a restaurant, a gas station, a hotel, or whether you are just a person out there greeting other people who come in for soccer tournaments or softball tournaments or any of those events. Put on, best foot forward, put on that friendly face and shake hands as often as you can.
I like smiling and saying, hey, welcome to the community. We're glad you're here. I hope you're having a good event, and need any help getting around town, or do you need some, here in Wisconsin Rapids, one of the things that can be confusing to a first timer is the river. Am I on the west side or the east side? Well, and to help folks understand the layout of the land, they're appreciative of that.
Our recreational opportunities here are really limitless. I mean, we have the river. We have 38,000 plus acres of county forest land, for those hunters, hikers, and outdoor enthusiasts. We have the 3 campgrounds and 3 parks, exceptional facilities. It's not right in Wood County, all of it, but we are becoming a Gulf Mecca.
You got it.
With further course development occurring. So the cranberry industry and ag tourism, all of those things that come into play, we need to take advantage of, because we see some areas that have increased tourism by 6, 7, 8, 9%, and our tourism industry increased last year, but only by about 1%. We need to market. We need to market strong. We need to become a premier player in this, because every one of those dollars typically doesn't cause us to add a lot of infrastructure. Those people come in for a couple of days and they leave for a couple of days. They typically don't use the schools, and normally aren't as large an impact on our emergency services. Every opportunity we have, we need to take advantage of.
Yeah, it's a huge, and there's so many other jobs that feed off of tourism, and we need to realize that. Any final thoughts as we head into the fall season here in Wood County? Anything in particular you wanted to get out to the listeners this morning?
I guess this would be my message. Be a partner. Sitting in my chair or any elected official's chair is not always easy. Typically we hear a lot of complaints.
Right.
I try to answer my phone and deal with those on a daily basis. There's obviously some questions, where we're in some negotiation where I really can't talk about the issue at that exact moment. But we need your participation in all issues. There are some special interest issues, that we certainly hear about, but there are a lot of issues that we deal with every day where 75 or 77,000 sets of eyes or mouths or opinions are much greater than that of our 19-member board. So I really appreciate when that person walks up to me on the street and tells me we're doing something wrong, or in that rare instance where they pat you on the back and say, hey, government's doing something right. Okay. But we certainly like to hear from you. The phones are always open. The opportunities are available. Every county board member's email address is available on our website. And
now's the time, folks. If you've got concerns about some budget items or spending or whatever, now's the time when the document's being put together, not after the county board has taken action on it. Now's the time to speak out and voice your opinion.
It is, because there are adjustments that can be made. Oftentimes, an issue, somebody calls up and they're somewhat upset or a little bit irate on an issue because really they had part of the facts. And normally after you give them the whole story, they say, well, now I understand. I might disagree with you,
but at least I know where you're coming from.
But I understand where you're coming from. And and that's always my goal is to understand where the other side on an issue is coming from. And I always tell people my favorite person in a meeting is the person who, there's 2 of them. A, asked the question that I failed to ask. And then my absolute favorite person is the person who asked the question that I can't answer. Because that makes me really go back and think and do a little bit more research. And that's the other side of the issue, and that's what makes government work.
Well, as always, we appreciate you taking time out of your schedule to visit with us on the Morning Magazine on a monthly visit. And we'll visit with you next month.
Thanks, Carl. I appreciate the opportunity.
Okay. Wood County Board Chairman Lance Pliml wrapping up part 1 of today's edition of the Morning Magazine.